Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
This world is changing more and more every day, and we've decided to change right along with it. My name is Dr. Lauren Michaels Harris, and I'm the president of Trajectory TV Network. At Trajectory, our vision is to provide a creative platform for top content creators and storytellers from around the globe. We're also dedicated to providing this world with content that is healing, educational, empowering, exciting, and above all else, entertaining and transparent. So right now, I invite all of you who believe yourselves to be global game changers to use the link found here and simply take a chance. Schedule a virtual chat where you'll have the opportunity to share your vision for your very own global television show with me, the network president. So use that link, and together, let's begin changing and healing this world, one story at a time. And remember, whether you have years of experience in front of the camera or zero experience, it doesn't matter. What matters the most is your desire to share great content through television and a willingness to share it with passion and with purpose. You might ask, how do I know if I've fallen in love with my purpose and my purpose has fallen in love with me? It's easy when you've lost your voice because you just can't stop talking about it. I'll see you soon.
On July 4th, 1962, I found myself in the lost and found of mankind. Just because something finds its way to the lost and found doesn't mean that it wants to be there. Just because something finds its way to the lost and found doesn't mean that the person who lost it doesn't care for that lost item.
You are writing moments that people will learn from, grow from, and heal through for thousands of years. Together, we are co-authoring a unique moment in time. That DNA, those fingerprints, they're going to be gone. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. But it is your story that they will tell for thousands of years, but only if you leave it. Things that do not serve you must go. The longer you wait, the more time you give them to trick you into serving them. 22 homes in foster care, everything I wore as a scar, as a shame, things that started like Velcro on my spirit. After just a few months, then years, then decades, I had believed myself into believing that they were indelible tattoos. Sometimes we have to be broken down to appreciate the view once we start getting up. I want you to leave this place and know that you have been changed. Why? How do I know it's true? Because each of you has just changed.
Don't see what's yours for the taking tonight.
Wake that ass up. The train is coming. The train is here. Get on board. We're getting ready to go somewhere today. I promise you that. We are going somewhere today. Can I get a name, man? Put it on the screen. Put it in the comments. Let me tell you something. What a blessing it is to be here together, because together we are fulfilling one of the greatest promises available. You know the one that guarantees us that where two or more of us comes together, we've got that heart set, we've got that mindset, that spirit of togetherness, of service to each other. You know what happens? Spiritual magic. Yay! I am so excited. Plus it's Thursday, y'all. We're almost there to the weekend. Almost there. Severe weather coming to Chicago today. We've got that blizzard watch all the way until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So I may be shoveling before I see you again. But I love it. I love it. Welcome to today's installment of Bathrobe Moments. I'm your host, Lauren Michael Harris. We've got a great show ahead. While I'm doing the announcements and a new product placement, well, not too new. This is the second time I've done it. Want to say hello to one of our new sponsors, this little thing, Jack Black. Welcome to Bathrobe Moments, Jack Black. I am trying today. I left my lips feel a little ashy. You know, that's a black saying. I don't know if white people know about that. Ashy. Dry. That's what it means. So I am using their day and night mode lip treatment. And then there's some words in French. That ain't a part of the contract, so I don't have to read it. Anyway, check out all the Jack Black products. You'll find their links in the show notes. Jack Black. Not to be confused with the movie of the same name. Welcome to the show, my sidekick. She's been here all 6 years. My bestie, Lucy McGillicuddy Ricardo. Today is just plain old Folgers. Wait, what's the one with Maxwell House? That's what it is. I buy what's on sale. I'm just keeping it real. One other thing. Really quickly. Things are going really well with everything for our trip to Romania. We are leaving on the 4th. Hold on, I want to get there. We go. There's the movie poster, the Saylor Brothers, Oscar-nominated documentary and filmmakers will be traveling with us. Thank you, God, to bring this story to the big screen, The Legacy of Hope. And we are headed over to Romania. Like I said, May 4th, we leave 4 o'clock in the afternoon from Chicago. 22 of us so far headed over there for the Legacy of Hope tour. We're not going to point out, oh, poor, look at this and that. No. We are going to, let me see, where am I? To provide hope. And to bring back some hope. Keeping it real. Bring back some hope. They've got some pieces that we need, and we have some pieces that they need. There it is again, that seatbelt of purpose that makes it all come together. Can I get an amen? It is the power of we, never the power of me. Or now I know some French. Let me grab this thing again. Maybe that'll count. never moi. Bella Purpose is with us. It's here every day. Really quickly, before I get Bryan Ashworth, Mr. Ashworth, I presume. I love that name. It just, good thing I don't have that name. Because I'd have like a walking stick and a big top hat and stuff when I went play, especially hotels. Excuse me, Bryan Ashworth checking in. Ooh, Mr. Ashworth, right away. Right. I sure would. And don't laugh, because I was with a girl once, and her last name was Cash, Chris Cash, and she said you wouldn't believe how many times people would assume they would go, "Are you related to Johnny Cash?" And she'd just go, and they'd go, "Oh, Miss Cat." Right. See, those names, something in a name. So he's here today, Bryan Ashworth. I met him in St. Louis last month for the Becoming the Best You experience. It was not an event. It was not a symposium or conference. It was an experience. Why? Because of the people. All of the people. Wasn't the chairs, wasn't the food, nothing about the hotel. I'm not taking nothing from you. But for me, the experience were the people, the stories. So we're going to get into it with Bryan today. I have his bio, but I'm not even going to go there. I just want to get him in here so that we can get started. He's come through some things, and I'm going to tell you something. Well, I'll wait till he gets in here. Put out the roll out, put out, roll out, throw out the red carpet, the virtual one. You know how we do it when someone is the first time here, but we do it every day anyway, no matter how many times they've been here or not. Put your hearts on the screen as we get poured into and pour back into, because this is a two-way feed. We want your engagement. Put all your thoughts and comments in the comment section as we bring our guest today to the stage, Mr. Bryan Ashworth. That's my jam. That's my jam. I'm back.
You like that bell?
Yeah, I do. The bell of purpose. It has a ring to it, just like the truth. So whenever some truth's out there, I'm going to ring that bell. Not to be confused with that other song, Anita Ward, Ring My Bell. She was talking about something completely different back then. Oh, nasty ass. I'm just playing. So, okay, let's just get the elephant or whatever those are on the wall out of the room.
They are not elephants, but yeah, I got you. Yes.
Let me guess your favorite show right now on television.
You won't guess it.
Yellowstone.
No.
It ought to be with all them heads on the wall. Okay, so what is it? What's your favorite show?
Actually, sitcom, Big Bang Theory.
Is that still on TV?
Reruns.
Oh.
I pretty well got them all memorized. Love that show. Yeah.
Here's my ADHD. Speaking of rerun, remember him from What's Happening? No, you're too young. Never mind. Don't go there. Yeah. So welcome to the show, Mr. Bryan.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me.
You got a rich name.
Mr. Ashworth at your service.
I know. So here's what I do. Because especially when I don't read one word from your bio, I'm going to dip out, give you the floor, just give you some personal time to break the ice with the audience, tell them a little bit. Don't give them too much, because I got to be able to ask you some questions. And I'll pop back in and we'll get this party started. How's that sound?
Perfect.
Okay. Oh, you take it away.
Well, hello, beautiful people. Let me just say, it is an honor to...
Excuse me.
Yes.
Beautiful people is trademark. Are you trying to get sued at 8:14 in the morning Central Standard Time?
I've been saying that for... Hey, you know what they say?
I got proof.
We got this at our experience.
Oh.
If you hear it and you say it a few times, you can claim it as your own. I've been saying it for a while.
Oh, well, you won't be saying it on here anymore. Bye-bye. So I guess I'm on the show alone today. Just kidding. I'm kidding. Okay, I'm leaving.
So what? So it's handsome people. How about that?
You can have that. But some
Wonderful
women are
people.
probably going to, I don't know if you want to do that. Me too, at times up, all that.
Gorgeous people.
There.
Gorgeous people.
Okay, all you.
Gorgeous people.
Don't start nothing. Won't be nothing. I'm just kidding.
It's so great to be with you guys this morning. Let me just kind of tell you a little bit about myself. I am no extraordinary person. I'm probably just like you, but I have been through, in my experience and in opinion, I've just been through hell and back. And I think what makes the difference, we've all been through hell. But I think what makes the difference for many of us is not what happens to us or what we go through, but how we respond and how we use that and those experiences to leverage that to help shift our compass to where we want to go and what we want to accomplish in life. And so that's what I try to focus on. And that's what I love to talk about. That's where my passions live. And so I just love to kind of dig into any time that we have, whether on the show, whether we connect individually, and just kind of share as deep as we want to go, what my experiences are and how I've been able to reshift that compass.
Nice. Now you said something that gave me the starting point, the first square of the sidewalk as we go around.
Let's do it.
This hour. You said get through. Now I just want to point this out. See, we hear that all the time. Let me tell you how I got through this, or how'd you get through that? But still, and yet, we listen to wall talk from people when we're going through those hard neighborhoods of life. And what I mean by that is when you call your besties, the people closest to you, family, relatives. You see, I went like this, loosely use the term family. Anyway, I'm in therapy for it. When people say, "Oh, Bryan, why don't you just get over it?" Oh, don't worry, Bryan. You'll find a way around it. Oh, eventually, Bryan, you'll dig yourself from underneath it. That's wall talk. God, universe, source, spirit does not give opportunities through walls. It's windows of opportunity. Sound familiar? It's doors of opportunity. Sound familiar? Right. Because God knows, spirit knows, source knows that if we can peek in, find a little courage, eventually we're going to find that courage to go in. And that's the only way to get through it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start there, but here's where we're going to start with you. Now, a lot of you, and I thought about that this morning when I was going through the show notes about what we were going to really do in here today. Bryan, you came through an experience about with cancer. Mm-hmm. That, and everybody, oh, not another come through cancer story. Well, it's not the big C that is the big piece. It's that moment when a person heard something that changed everything. The way you think, where your fear lives, all the stuff comes rushing to the front of the room. And then you see that one little thing that was hiding over. What is that on the floor in the corner? Look like a piece of balled up paper or something with no value. And usually that's the thing a person holds on to get through anything that is rough, like what we're going to talk about here. So I want to start with what happened. Take us back to that day when you were minding your own business and all of a sudden change became your business. Go ahead. Go there.
Well, it didn't begin with the cancer story. I have a very unique perspective, and I want to highlight something that you just said, and that was the doors of opportunity. And I think many times we, cancer, for example, we get kind of blindsided with a diagnosis, something like that, and that's the last thing from our mind is that this is an opportunity. And so I really want to point out, because you said doors of opportunity. And it's just a series of doors in my life that, and we've all heard the adage and the phrase, when one door closes, another door opens. Mm-hmm. And that rings true, I think, for me and probably for most people. But I think what we fail to recognize, because it's not in the saying or in the adage, is where's that other open door? I'm walking out of a closed door. Where's the other open door? Is it next door? Is it down the hall? Is it across the hall? But there is a hallway. There's a transition point or period. And, that takes me back to my high school days. I mean, I was picked on in high school. I was bullied. I was a nerd. I hated the 5 minutes between classes. I hated going into that hallway, but that was the transition. That's where the bullies lived. That's where they roamed. But that's where the opportunities were. That's where the growth is. And so I just want to point that out. And I thank you for using that phrase, because that's kind of my signature through my whole life. But it started way back when I was in the womb is
beginning once upon a time.
Yeah.
So Bryan, okay. See, it's so different the way we talk about it once we know.
But when you're first, when it's like a bucket of cold water, life throws it on you. Mind your business. Like, what in the world? Where'd you go? Who did that? And in those moments, oftentimes people, it's like you become Helen Keller. You don't know where the things are you have put in place to reach for when you cannot show up as that person like we are here right now. Got it together, feeling good. Some days, all of us don't wake up these people. And I want to know, what did you find then that you still keep within reach now when you don't wake up ready to smile and grin and do the soft shoe, when another cold bucket of water of whatever form is thrown into the face of today? What is it you reach for?
Well, you know what? It's a great question. And I think that's the question many people are trying to answer and spend thousands of dollars and travel the world trying to seek that answer.
From other places, other people.
Google fails to answer it, but it gives many of opportunities, to fill in those blanks. But oftentimes we feel left empty and unsatisfied. But for me, it's slowing down. And I hope this word doesn't trigger anyone in the audience, but but for me, it paints a very vivid picture. It's divorcing my story from the event.
Ooh, go into that. Peel that onion.
Okay. So
like that.
Let me frame this and kind of bring the metaphor back into the story.
Okay.
So the day that I was born, my mother's in the hospital. My father, my birth father, biological father, walks in from the hallway to my mother's room and says, I don't want to be a dad. I don't even want to be your husband. And exits left back to the hallway to disappear out of our lives forever to pursue a life with another woman. Now, obviously, as a newborn baby, I don't remember that. I mean, I heard my mother's retelling of that story from her perspective, right? Yeah. But my earliest memories as a father was my stepdad adopted me when I was a year old. And when I was about 4, my first sibling was born. And so that was probably about the time where my memories really start. And I remember when my sister was born, and I think this is probably common when a new baby comes into the home, the other child feels a bit neglected. I think that's common, but this goes beyond that. We're talking abuse, just violent outbursts of rage.
By whom?
Abuse. By my stepfather.
By stepfather.
And so that's when I realized, or I created a narrative around these experiences, and I connected the story that I heard from my mother about being abandoned by my real dad, and I'm trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together so my world makes sense. And when we don't have adults in our life that have the emotional capacity and the maturity, and I didn't realize, my parents were kids having kids.
Yeah.
Children don't have the capacity to understand. They're just big people, right? And the older we get, we realize, oh, they were 17, 18, 19 years old. They were kids.
Kids themselves.
Yeah.
So
without parents to really teach their children to be safe emotionally. And, my mother grew up in a generation and a narrative in her home that children should be seen and not heard. And so we kind of pass those messages down. Right.
Yeah.
So as I get older, I grow up, I'm a very angry kid. I'm always looking for a place to fit in. And I have a narrative wrapped around these events, because when my mother would confront the behavior of that abuse from my stepdad, hell would erupt in the hallway of my home.
Mm-hmm.
And I would run to my room and I would hide in the corner between the bed and my wall. And I would cut my little ears, just trying to drown out the hell in that hallway. But I couldn't escape the hell in my own mind that was screaming, you're not lovable, you're worthless, you're not valued. And you're not accepted. If you want any of those things, you have to earn it and prove yourself. So I grew up to be a perfectionist. I was a straight A student. But the older I got and I got into teenage years, I was living a double life because I was hell on wheels at night, but I was the perfect kid during the day.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's go back real quick. This is important. because I was kind of getting a download about it to bring it in. So I'm going to bring it in. Because you remember in St. Louis, I don't know, were you in my breakout? Say
No,
yes.
I was not.
Oh, we're experiencing difficult technicals. I don't know what happened. Where'd he go? I'm just playing. Oh, so we finally put that on the table. You can explain about that after the show. Anyway, I'm just kidding. But here's the point. That room, if you will, that you were describing, y'all know it. I know it. It's different circumstances, same carpet. We were still standing. We may have been in different rooms, but we were all standing on that same carpet once or twice or multiple times in our lives when it felt just like what he was talking about, where you cup your ears and all of that stuff. And the reason I bring that in is this. Do you remember? Well, you weren't in there, but for the first time ever, not even on the show, I don't bring it up, but I did on stage. I was like, why'd you have me bring that in? About the mass shootings and how there'd been, because we were in February and they said there's been more mass shootings this year than days in the month. I mean, then we've got more shootings than we have in days so far in the year. And that was at 68 when I said that at 3 something. And then when I came back at 8 o'clock, there had been another one. Remember, I mentioned that right from the stage that fast. So here's
I do remember that. Yeah.
Okay. So that room, that experience, that entity, that spirit, those whispers are the same ones. We used to hear them and go into whatever it is we go into. Now, more and more, those whispers are leading people to pick up guns and just go take arbitrary, innocent lives. And worse, if there's anything worse than that. But it is growing. So that's why I'm so encouraged about that link that I dropped into the comment section. You guys go to the top of the feed, the thread in your comment section if you're watching from Facebook, and you will see it. And for those of you who are watching from your big screen TVs, I will put it up on the screen so that you can grab it. But this assessment that go into that now, what kind of work you do in this assessment, because I've taken it. So I'm not just talking about a link. Okay. I'm not talking about something that was in his bio. I'm talking about, because that thing took me a while, not because it was long, because it made me stop. And I really, usually you can click the thing and fill in the box or this and the other, because it wasn't type in answers. It was choices.
Yeah.
And I was really amazed, surprised, even shocked at sometimes, honestly, how thought-provoking some of those questions were. They just made me go someplace. I was like, oh. So start that road for us.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Let me come back and kind of tie a bow on that last question, because
there it is.
I think it's important. When I say divorce your story from the event, I want to bring some clarity to that, because I want to be very sensitive. In no way am I saying, hey, let's disregard or sweep the events under the rug. Let's pretend they didn't happen, or let's minimize the impacts. I'm not saying any of those things, but recognizing them for what they are. It is a fact that my father abandoned me. It's a fact that I had abuse. It's a fact that I was an angry kid, and I could go on with the stories of my life. But those things are facts. They're true. They happened. But is the story and the narrative around that true? Is it true that I wasn't lovable? Is it true that I wasn't worthy? Is it true? They never told me those things. And even if they had, is that even true? Right? So it's taking inventory of that narrative and divorcing or separating the narrative from the event, and asking myself, is the story I'm telling myself about the event really true?
Correct.
And so one of my favorite books is Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. And in that book, this is a quote that I live by, which leads into your next question. And he says this, because if you don't know Viktor Frankl, he's an Auschwitz survivor. His story is he was a Jewish doctor in Auschwitz, and he was observing the men in his tent getting sick, because here's what happened. They would say, well, by Christmas of this year, the Americans will liberate us, and Christmas, New Year's comes, and they're still there. And we know the book that says hope deferred makes the heart sick. Right?
Say that again.
Hope deferred makes the heart sick.
Mm.
Right? So that's what he observed. And so he began to get them to change their language and say, don't say, at Christmas, say, when we get out of here, this is what I'm going to do. Right? So creating the space in the book, he says this: in between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose. And it is within our choice lies our growth and freedom. Right?
Yeah. Yes.
So I've lived most of my life just reacting, getting triggered emotionally, just reacting to things. I had no capacity, no emotional space. So when I'm able to slow down and create space and separate the story from the event, I can really then begin to evaluate and look at me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I began to find out and learn who is Bryan Ashworth. Right.
Exactly. Now, you know what you just described. Very important, everybody. Very important. Because it's never about one thing. And that is how we adhere to one of the 4 agreements, the one that speaks to don't take things personally. Also, don't make assumptions in there when we separate ourselves from the event, because events don't have the power to define us, but they do carry within the event the power to refine us. So keep going. Right with you.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is a passion assessment that I'm in. It's a motivational science. Right.
Passion assessment.
It's a passion assessment. And here's what I found, because in my search for finding out, who I am, I've taken every assessment under the sun, from DISC to Strength Finders to Myers-Briggs to all those things. Right.
Yes.
And those things are valuable, and I find value in those things. But as I began to try to live it and express it, and I began to use it in my coaching practice, I found that I could have 2 people with the same exact, very identical personality assessment scores, and yet in an observation of them, they're expressed very differently as individuals. And I found that some of these assessments just kind of put you in a box.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do.
And it was just one day I went to a networking event in one of my other businesses, representing one of my other businesses. And a speaker there was actually was chaplain for the Kansas City Chiefs football team.
Mm-hmm.
He has his own story, went through his own kind of journey, and got promoted to a chaplain for the National Football League. So now he's the chaplain for the chaplain. So he's speaking at this event. He's now a very good friend of mine. And he gets me connected to this passion quotient idea.
Mm-hmm.
So we've heard of intelligence quotient. We have emotional or, intelligence, IQ, intelligence quotient. There's emotional quotient, EQ, emotional intelligence. And if COVID did anything for us, here's what it did do. How many people, because the government dumped so much money into pivoting during the pandemic, that people that had been stuck in jobs for 20, 30, 40 years took advantage of that opportunity to go pursue what they said they were passionate about because the government funded it. Right. And what happens a lot of times that we observed is people would say, for example, I'm getting out of my corporate job. I love dogs. I'm going to go start a dog rescue. 6-8 months in, they go, this sucks. I don't want to run a rescue. I just love dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And so we confuse something that we're excited about, or we confuse an emotion with a passion. And it can shift our trajectory in life in a wrong direction. So when I took a passion assessment, it not only revealed the things I'm passionate about, but here's what it does do is it can reveal trauma that have impacted and suppressed some of my passions that aren't really necessarily being expressed.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I coach people and I look at kind of the overview of their life through their passions, I met with a gal yesterday and looked at her profile. And the first question I asked her was, what are you escaping from? and she just broke down in tears.
Why do you think that happened?
Well, her profile indicated that the passions, the way they were related and how she scored, she was overcompensating in areas of her life that really weren't her passions. And she wasn't living from her truest passion because she had a very traumatic experience as a child from her mother that she just suppressed it. And so as we begin talking and walking through, and she learns how to bring that core passion back to life, her whole life's going to change. And she's not going to have to escape and pretend.
And those blueberries are good in there. I put blueberries in my raisin bread today. It's like, was that a clash? Is that like wearing stripes and polka dots? Here comes the ADHD again. Sorry. But anyway, it's really good. But let's go back to the main word there. Passion. Now, I think, you tell me your opinion, I think a lot of people really don't understand what that word means personally. They think it's like a dream. My dream is to, that my passion is to. I have, I have a passion for helping dogs. Yes, but break down, if you could, in the work you do and what this assessment speaks to, where does passion really live? What does it look like?
Passion's at the very core of the essence of your being. It's your DNA, and it's how you're wired. I can look at your profile and having just spent a little bit of time with you, one of your biggest passions, Lauren, is power. And we think of power, sometimes we think of control, depending on how we've experienced our perception or how we've defined power. We tie that to manipulation or some narcissistic tendency or whatever. We pervert this idea of power, but in its purest essence,
this coffee and bring me something other than this swill. That kind of, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Or we think of, presidents or politicians or people of high position. Would really, at its essence, true, authentic power is your innate, ingrained desire to influence people.
Ooh. Let me tell you, you're absolutely right. I just had this conversation yesterday. Who was it? Somebody from the Romanian faction for our trip, because there's a bunch of them. And I'll tell you, for me, you're absolutely right. Because I'll be honest with you, I'm being transparent. When you said your passion is power, I was like, who are you calling an egomaniac? Right. But then it took me to this thing. The reason I believe what you said is true is because I just had the conversation about, I'm so grateful that I have learned and I'm still learning every day how to better submit to the will of what is greater than me, bending to the will of what is greater than me, because that's how the power, that's where the momentum, that's where the consistency, that's where when I end, something greater than me continues, which is a promise. It is out there and it is available. It is free. When you are free, willing to bend to the will. I know that's a lot of back and forth, but I told you the ADHD was coming. So see how important that is. I'm serious, Bryan. I'm not kidding. I'm telling you right here, and everyone here, use some words. Use some words that, like you did with me, that my passion was power. What are some other passions that people see? I thought power was a negative when it came out of your mouth. I didn't see it anywhere in the sacred circle of my passion. I would have said being of service, being an empath, because I believe our passion lives right after we've drawn our most recent life-giving breath, whatever is standing right in front of you.
Yeah.
Is your passion. So surprise some people. Hey, how about this? You guys, if you think you know your passion, Drop it in. Is your passion one word? Is it a sentence? Is it a phrase? Because you used one word for me. So Bryan, what is it? Does passion come one word all the time?
Typically, it's a cluster. I mean, there's 16 to 24 different passions that we can chart, and each of those passions are grouped in quadrants. I look at your passions, and you're very strong entrepreneurially, but your power passion comes out of your producer. That's the get her done. I'm going to throw things out there you might not know. Get her done.
Please.
But yeah, there's a cluster. So it's not just one. It's really zooming back and looking at how are all my passions related? Because here's the thing. This is not just a thing that says, oh, you're passionate about this, so let's find a job for you, or let's go find a hobby for this. This is no, here's how they're positioned, and here's how they're relating to each other. And in the example of, I'll give you an example of my mother, right? Children should be seen and not heard. So her power passion was wounded at a very young age, and it was suppressed. And she wrapped the narrative around it. It's not okay for me to speak up. I don't have a voice. So she squelched and suppressed her power passion, and then gets into relationships where she's dominated, controlled, and abused. And she lives out the narrative wrapped around the event that was given to her by her mother. Right? So now I'm coaching my mother on how to bring her power passion back. And I'm not using quite this language with her because she's reading books. Well, I just need to learn to set boundaries. That might be true, but that's the fruit on the tree. Let's get to the root of it so you can flourish. Right? Because if we don't bring a power passion back and you're just efforting to set boundaries, you're going to live an exhausted life. Because you're not getting the inflow, you're not getting fed. You're just exhausting your energy trying to do something you don't have the energy to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if she can tap into her DNA and how she's wired and resurrect her power passion and let that kind of fuel her efforts to then set those boundaries, she can live free.
Here comes we. Now, while you were speaking, I kept saying entanglement, like being caught in a ball of yarn or a big giant bunch of spider web. You can't, that's when we don't separate ourselves from the events. That's what, or like if you've ever had you ever seen people that throw all their gold necklaces in one box, then they got a big old clump because somehow they get entangled. It's not like you were shaking them up, but somehow they find themselves all in between each other. And then a lot of people don't have the patience to sit there and take this one out, and they just throw the whole thing away or whatever. So you gave a number of number of passions. What was it? 20 something, I think.
16 to 24.
16 to 20. Give us a handful of them that might surprise people when you hear it, as far as a passion like power was for me.
Acceptance is a big one for me.
It's a passion.
But it was a passion that was greatly impacted by the trauma in my life, the abandonment of my father, the rejection of my father. So my acceptance passion went way off the chart, that I didn't know how to make decisions. Because the wounded on my acceptance passion, I became a chameleon, and I would be everything I thought you wanted me to be, so you would like me and I'd fit in. And as I began my healing process and I could see what's going on and put a language to things, I being healed in my acceptance passion to a healthy place, and a healthy place of acceptance. So acceptance is a passion. Idealism is a passion. Where do you rank on idealism? Are you way to the right, where it's really like social justice? That you just hand out cash out the window to every guy standing on the street corner, or do you go way the other way and go, no, I'll give, but you're gonna meet me halfway. You're gonna take a step before I take one. And so there's varying degrees, but idealism, expedience, the need to think outside the box. Are we an inside or outside the box thinker? Adventure is a passion. How's your aversion to risk? curiosity.
Ooh.
Curiosity. Am I always
Ooh.
am I asking why, or do I just accept things for what the way they are?
Exactly.
And here's the thing: people are doing these things and reacting and responding these way, and they go, "Well, that's just who I am." And I lean in, I go, "Are you? Or has your passions been wounded and you're overcompensating?"
See, this is what I was talking about when I took the assessment. How, because I was walking around the venue, doing it because I wanted to show you I was interested. And I guess I was. Well, I'm not guessing. I know now it was that curiosity that you just spoke of that was kept pulling me. But again, I was free and willing to be pulled, because you can pull back, and now you got a tug of war going on. So 1 2-minute break, and we're coming back, and I want us to round out today with, I want you to think of a couple standout stories from people that have taken this assessment, thinking, oh, here I go with just another assessment, and then blank happened. That and more when we come back. Still a lot more experience in front of us, a lot more show, a lot more conversation. Great time to share out the broadcast. We'll be right back. Don't you dare go away.
You can navigate the legal and emotional journey of divorce and exit a marriage the way you entered it, with mindfulness, love, and respect. Solace Divorce Mediation is a full-service law practice helping couples focus on the health and well-being of children and their forever co-parenting family. Our streamlined divorce journey offers flat fees with an estimated completion time frame of 2 to 4 months. If you or a friend need us, visit solacedivorce.com.
Speed commercial in 3, 2, 1. V8, 100% vegetable juice from concentrate, 60 calories every can, 2.5 vegetable servings in every can. Find it in the juice aisle at your local grocer. It's not too late to have a V8. Thank you, V8. Okay, we're back. So, because I wanted to hurry up and get back in here. So, did you think about what I said before we left?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to dip out so I can enjoy this in private and share with us about some of the outcomes, some of the surprise outcomes, so people will perhaps use the link at the end of the broadcast. Oh, you.
Sure. Well, obviously the greatest story that I have is my own. And I was probably the biggest skeptic because I've, at this point, had so many assessments that I was one of those people that, oh, here we go, just another assessment. I just kind of come to the end like, is this as good as it's going to get? And so I go through the assessment, and I'm sitting with my coach in my debrief, and he looks at my profile. I've never met him. He's in New Jersey, Princeton. And so first time I ever met the guy, he looks at me, looks at my profile, and he says, "Bryan, what happened to you about the age of 5 that totally changed the course of your life?" And I turned white as a ghost and just started to cry. Because this was a very specific targeted question. It wasn't what happened to you or, getting lucky on an assumptive guess or whatever. No, he was what happened about the age of 5. And so that just blew me away. And so at that point I knew, because that's about when my story really started, when I started getting the awareness of, am I the proverbial redheaded stepkid and all this stuff. So that was mine for one. The second story would be working with seeing the impacts of how this works in a marriage. I'm working with a couple right now, and they are becoming aware of not only their individual passions and the passions that have been wounded from their own experiences, but how those experiences are playing out and interacting in their marriage. And so now they are learning a new language to use and have empathy for one another for what they've been through, and an understanding for how their partner's passions have been impacted and wounded. And so it's like this empathy and compassion is coming out of them for the other person rather than fighting. They're kind of drawing together. And so it's a beautiful thing.
It sounds like it. Now back to you, so we can keep the circle and close it before we end today. We started with you, and then we went off and talked about some other people's and some other things, some other people's experiences. But now let's come back, because we talked about the big C and this and the other. So let's talk about how this aha moment, this revelation, this epiphany part of your journey, this section of the blog, has impacted you, not just in big things like a diagnosis and getting through the cancer thing, but how important is it that you apply it consistently from the rooter to the tutor, from the smallest to the largest? Because within purpose, there is no behind or in front of, above or below. It is consistent. It works one size fits all. So talk about that. Because, a lot of us don't start things because we think either we're not enough yet or it's too much for me now. And it falls through the cracks. It gets thrown into the proverbial junk drawer of life. So let's get to that, because I really want as many people as possible to just click the link and see if it surprises you like it did me. Go ahead. Talk about that, if you would, Bryan.
Well, I think you've asked a lot right there. And I'm just kind of processing everything that I heard you just say, but
that's the ADHD.
So the thing that's coming to my mind is, and I say this often, awareness is a bitch, right? Because have you ever had a friend that's like, hey, let me show you this picture on my phone, and you're like, oh God, I could have gone my whole life without seeing that, right? And now the image is burned on your brain. Well, that's awareness. Once you become aware of something and see it, you can't unsee it, right? And I think a lot of people, they deep down, they know, but they don't want to admit it, and they don't want to bring their head in connection with their heart. So they choose to not choose, is still choosing, to not connect their head and their heart, to break out, break through, and live the life they were created to live, and tap into that passion. Because it's hard work. It's hard work until it's not. But I say, you know what? Living the way you're living is painful. I told my son this. I said, living the way you're living is painful. I can only imagine the pain that you're living in. And I've lived through a lot of pain.
Yes.
But change is pain. I know change is hard. Change is painful.
That's why it's called growing pains and not growing tickles.
But you know what? There's another side to there's another side to growing pain.
Right.
There's freedom, there's hope, there's life, right?
All of it.
That's a temporary pain. So choose your pain. You can live in pain for the rest of your life and just suck it up, or you can grow with the pain and come out a better person. But I think people are afraid. They're afraid of what they don't know. They're afraid of what they think they know.
There it is.
And there's so many reasons why that is, but I promise you, there was no medical explanation for my cancer diagnosis. None. It wasn't a lifestyle. It wasn't, I say lifestyle in terms of like eating or, crazy life, drinking, party. There's none of that. Right. It wasn't because of some chemical exposure. It wasn't anything like that. There was nothing doctors could say, this is what we could point this to. Mm-hmm. But I know that I was living in a very toxic relationship. I was suppressing my own passions. I was trying to be somebody I wasn't to please somebody else, just to keep the peace, because the pain of keeping the peace was greater than the pain of living out my best life and creating the conflict that it would create. I chose my pain, and that pain led to a diagnosis because I wasn't living out of who I was. And when you don't live out of who you are, you're going to become something you're not created to be. And it manifested as cancer in my body.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are faced with a life death, they told me this is a very aggressive, it's less than 1% of lymphomas. From the point of diagnosis, I had a marble size tumor in my neck. In 3 weeks, it was like a softball.
In 3 weeks.
Yeah, I was stage 3 by the time I went in, and so it was that fast. So the treatment was very aggressive. It was brutal. And when you go through that, I'm going to tell you, brother, you don't think about anything else. You're just like, shit, what do I have to do?
Right.
Right. But here's the funny part. This blew my mind. There were actually people going through chemo that had cancer. And this comes back to passions, right? When we have such wounded passions, like the acceptance passion is so wounded, well, we'll just do anything to be accepted by somebody.
Yeah.
I literally saw cancer patients going through chemo that I began to ask myself, do they even want to recover? Do they want to heal from this? Because the attention that they were getting from the diagnosis and the treatments, they would lose that without the diagnosis and the treatment. So they were getting that love and the acceptance that they crave, but they had to have cancer to get it. So it didn't seem like they were willing to give up the cancer. They didn't want to let it go.
Oh, I like this better. Right. And I'm going to say this because we're going to wrap up here in a minute, but I'll tell you this. When I was a little kid, I used to look at like Life magazine and stuff, right? And I remember Martin Luther King, and I remember I asked my mom, they showed the people locking arms at the front, and the police were over there with the dogs and the hoses, but I wasn't paying attention to the people up front. I was looking at the looks on the faces of the people that were way in the back, because I was like, they're on the cover, they're in the story, but they're not adding their story to it. You could see they were at the back waiting to see what happened to the people that found the courage to be at the front. If they lived through it, then maybe I will choose. There it is again. Choice. And I don't know about you, but do you really want to go out? Do you want to go into what's next, having stood in the back of the room, stood at the back of the crowd? Or do you want to be up front and center within your own story? That's why it's yours. That's why it's mine. Bryan, tell us about these links. There is Bryan at thestairwell.org. What will they find when they visit you there?
That's my email. That comes directly to me. So you could reach out anytime. I'd be happy to connect. I've also put my phone number in the chat. There it is. Feel free to call me. That's my cell phone number.
Here's the other part at the bottom. To receive your free $1,000 check, call 913. Oh, wait, I made that up. Do not call for a check. I made that up. Go ahead. Now, a lot of people don't give out the phone numbers. What's up with that?
My NFL friend, Chaplain, that's what he did. And that's how I got connected to him. And through that connection, changed my life. And so I'm paying it forward.
I know that's right. My phone number's out there on everything. Yeah. Kind of backfired once or twice, but overall, it's a good thing. So,
but hey, you can go to thestairwell.org. That's my website. There's a couple options through there to take my free assessment. When you do that, it'll take you to a landing page. You can put in your name and email, and then redirect you to a free top 5 assessment.
Which I've taken.
Yes. And then I will give you a free 15-minute debrief on that. We'll walk through that. If you just want to go all the way to the big assessment, that's 16 to 24 passion, and kind of look in and look under the hood and take a deep dive, that link is also on there under services. It's $125. You get an hour with me or another coach, and we can do that. There's so many options for, bring this into teams and the corporations or marriage and family, but it's all there on my website, thestairwell.org.
All right, everybody, get over. Now it's in your world. What you do with it remains to be seen. Write your story the way you want it to be read, the manner in which you want it to be remembered, because that will determine the manner in which the world will repeat it. Take that with you, and God willing, I will meet you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Central again on the front porch, where together we create another unique moment, another divine moment in time. I'm Lauren Michaels Harris, and I'll see you tomorrow. Remember what I tell you in parting every day. I love you, and ain't a damn thing you can do about it. Get out there and be the best. Thank you, Bryan. Great job. Thank you so much.
Live with passion.
Live with passion. There it is. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.